Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this webinar, The Wisdom of Talking to God. Deb and I just had a little chat before we kind of started letting people in about how to even introduce what this webinar is or why we came up with this topic and what on earth is going to happen tonight. So first off, thank you for coming. You're
I'm
very
glad you're
brave.
going to introduce what's going to happen tonight because that'll give me a clue.
Yeah, I know, because we did talk about that earlier, didn't we, Deb? What are you going to do tonight? Well, let's see. So many of you will probably know that Deb and I had a religious upbringing. This is not a religious call. I'll just start, with that immediately. Although I think most of you know us and have been around us long enough to know that's not exactly where we're heading tonight. But as a part of that, we kind of always talked to God, but it was in a very kind of formulated, you said your prayers at a certain time or for certain things, and there was a lot of rules around what you did or didn't say, and that kind of thing. But we've always talked to God. That's always been something we've done. And in recent years, we've kind of expanded on that and found our way into that in a much more natural way, in a much more wisdom-led way. And in the last couple of years, particularly in the context of the Love Experiment, which is a game that Deb is playing, that's also a program that we run as part of our business, that has become even more prevalent for us, the kind of talking to God, inviting God to talk to us and hearing in whatever way that comes through the messages that come from God, that power, that energy, that source of all things behind life. And I don't actually know exactly how it came out of Deb's mouth, but at some point in the last couple of months, I'm going to do a webinar about talking to God. And we actually, because Deb shares about that a lot in her emails and that sort of thing, we get a lot of people contacting us, kind of going, really? What does that mean? How does that work? Tell me more. Or don't tell me more. Sometimes happens. Stop telling me about it. Can sometimes happen too. And so I think with all of that kind of going on in the background, it occurred to Deb to offer this as a webinar, as a conversation. What do I mean by talking to God? What is the wisdom in doing that? How do I do that? How can you do that? So that's going to be sort of the juice in tonight's webinar. There will be a replay for you to catch up on tomorrow as well. And then a bit later on in the call, there'll be an opportunity for questions, comments, and interaction. But with all of that said, over to you, Deb.
Thank you. Thanks, Beck. So, a very interesting topic, isn't it? Talking to God. So I was thinking about this earlier today, thinking about what this means to me, what this topic means to me. What do I mean when I talk about talking to God? And I realized that when I came across the principles and Sydney Banks, and the three principles, mind, thought, and consciousness, and this idea of wisdom, I think all of us have a knowing that we have an inner knowing sometimes. It's just there sometimes in crazy times. There's just moments when we just know something, and it's kind of unexplainable sometimes why we know things. And definitely for me, I had a lot of realizations about that when my children were small. I would just know things about my children, what they wanted, or when to take them to the doctor or something like that. I would just have a knowing that I was very happy to trust. And I don't think it necessarily shows up for everyone in the same way, in the same shape, in the same form, and the same topics. But I think we are all aware at times of, you might call it intuition, but this idea that Sydney Banks talks about, wisdom, common sense, even sometimes, like it's just like, yeah, I know this. This is how it should be. So I got really interested, and when I was on when I was learning a lot about the principles, and I would go on webinars and things like this, I would hear people talking about, well, how do I discern? How do I know when it's wisdom? How do I know that? How do I know if it's my wisdom, if it's, or me or whatever? How do I discern? How do I tell the difference between these things? And one of the things that I have really, really seen is noticed with having a relationship with God is if I ask questions, I get answers. Now, sometimes they are very direct answers, words that appear in the same way. If I would ask Beck a question and she would answer me, it really feels like that to me sometimes. And other times those answers can be over time, or they can appear in something someone else says, or a song on the radio, or something very obvious that happens to me. But I've really started to notice that if I asked questions, and I can look back over my life and see that's always been present. That kind of asking, that kind of hearing has always been present. And then much more recently, I got very, very interested in reading the Bible. I absolutely love reading the Bible. I was intrigued by, as Beck said, we were brought up in a Bible-based religion, and we read the Bible from a very young age. And I just was intrigued by some of the things that I had read in the Bible, and listening to a lot of Sydney Banks's original work. He talked a lot about God, which kind of led me back to looking in that direction. And for me, when I heard the principles mind, thought, and consciousness, it didn't make sense to me. The word mind never made sense to me, because it just made me think of my own head. It didn't work and compute in that way. And so pretty much straight away, and definitely in the conversations Beck and I had, we would just talk about God. We would just refer to it in that way, between ourselves. It would just be God, because that just made more sense. It was like that was, if you listen to Sydney Banks's early talks and the early things he did, he would use the word God. And what I loved about the principles, and still to this day, I think the principles are a brilliant description of how life works. I just think they are. It's so incredibly helpful to understand the spiritual nature, the spiritual gift of thought. The fact that when we have a thought, we don't have to believe it. We don't have to think that. It might not be what we actually think. We can question it. We can look at it. So that brought me around in a loop to this whole, how do I know when it's God talking to me, or if it's me talking? And I got really, really curious about that. And as I said, when I started to ask questions, I would get answers. And one of the things, I don't know if I don't know if you can relate to this about somebody, but I have quite a few people, certainly my clients, people that work with me over time and this sort of thing. Beck will do this on occasions, definitely my son and my daughter, absolutely my partner Russ will do this. And it'll be this thing, it'll be like something will be going on, and they'll be like, it's like you're in my head, Deb. It's like you're saying something to me. I can hear you, and I know it's, and sometimes you even come out of my mouth, it's like this. And when you have a conversation with somebody, it's like, well, why? What makes you know that it's me? And it's like, well, I know the kind of things you're going to say. You're going to say, I have one particular a friend of mine who was a client for a while, and one of the things that just occurred, I do say this quite a bit sometimes, but one of the things that occurred in our time together, I would say to her, she would start to get upset about something. Obviously, we knew each other well enough. It was all done in a very loving, very kind, very beautiful way. But she would start to say something, and I would just say, oh, I love your story. And one of the things that she said is, she said, oh, the minute I get into something, she said, the minute my head starts taking me somewhere, she said, I hear you saying, oh, I love your story. You know, should I can hear you, I can see you, I can feel you saying those words to me. And so what occurred to me in that was those people that have me in their head in that way know me quite well. They know my nature. They know what it is I'm likely to say. When they hear me, I'm not going to say something. When I speak in their mind, I am not going to say something out of character. They're going to know it's me because of what I say. They're going to know, oh yeah, oh yeah, that'll be Deb. Deb will say, yeah, Deb, you know, and like Josh, my son, you know, he'll go, I know it's you because you're telling me to be kind, or you're telling me to come from love, or you're telling me, you know, he knows it's me because he knows my nature. He knows what it is. And if, you know, if he would never attribute it to me in his head if I said, be as nasty to that person as you possibly can. It would be like, he'd be like, oh, you're not my mum. I know that is not the kind of thing my mum is going to say, because he knows my nature. So in answer, when I was asking God about this, how do I know it's you? And God was like, the more you get to know me, the more you know my nature. You know, I am not going to, and it's a joint thing. It was like God spoke to me about knowing myself and knowing God, knowing the nature of God. What kind of things is God likely to say to me? And how would I know if it wasn't God? Because it would be, I would know that God wouldn't say that. Again, you know, if I felt wronged or something like that, oh, you know, that person wasn't being very nice to me. God, what do you think? Do you think they're not nice? Well, yes, I do. I don't think they're right or nice. It's like, that would not be God. That is not God's nature. That is not how God would speak to me. God would be, well, should we look at who's not being nice and who is being nice? You know, it would come in a whole different way. I would be pointed in a whole different direction. And again, the more that I learned my own nature. So what's my nature? I can be selfish. I can be a people pleaser. I can be self-centered and fearful. And so if I am talking to God, if what comes back is feeding into something that, you know, that I know is about me being self-centered, or me being, you know, it plays, oh yes, you're right, Deb. And obviously it wouldn't maybe be quite as obvious that, but it's like, I know the nature of God. That is not where I'm going to be pointed. I'm going to be pointed towards love. I'm going to be pointed towards truth. I'm going to be pointed, and it would never be like, God will call me out sometimes. It's never cruel, and it's never mean, and it's never, but it's not like God is on my side in the way I would be on the side of someone I dearly, truly loved, as in, if I knew they were going to do something that was self-centered or selfish or rooted in fear or not a good thing for them, I wouldn't want to approve of that and agree with them doing that and encourage them to do that. I would want to very gently be pointing them back towards truth. I would be wanting to call them out in what was going on for them. So very much, and a huge part for me about reading the Bible tells me about my human nature and tells me about the nature of God. And the more I know those things, the more I am in relationship to God. Like, to me, all of the people who have me inside of their head know me. Even if they don't know me personally, they maybe listen to my YouTube channel. You know, I will meet people sometimes who I've never met, but they'll be saying, oh, you know, I've listened to you on YouTube for the last 2 years. They know me. They know the kinds of things I'm going to say. They know what is going to come out of my mouth. So it's like, they know, they have an understanding of who I am, and that's what creates, that's how they have my voice in their head, because they know the type of things I'm going to say to them. So what I see when I think of what Sydney Banks was pointing us towards when he talked about wisdom and talked about the fact that we are peace, love, and wisdom, and we can lean into that and know it. It is like, yeah, get to know the nature of that. What is the nature of the peace, love, and wisdom that you have at your fingertips, that you can know intimately? And how can leaning into that help you? So one of the things, I'm going to read a couple of Bible verses, because one of the things that really struck me about learning about the nature of God, like how, for me, the two ways I learn about the nature of God is through reading the Bible and through talking to God, creating a relationship, because we get to know people, like Russ and I, my partner who I live with, he can practically finish my sentences. And I was earlier on today, I was talking about doing this webinar or something. I said something about God, and I was like, well, I said, you probably don't really know much about this, do you? And he said, Deb, I live with you. It's like, you really think that I don't know that you talk to God? It's like, I live with you. It's like, yeah, we know people who we are in relationship with. And so one of the things, I haven't got a Bible verse for this. I could have got one. It didn't come up when I was thinking about it. But one of the things we are invited again and again and again to do is to be in relationship with God. It's like, this isn't God, the love that we are, God that resides within us, is not a far off thing that isn't involved in our moment to moment, day to day life. It's like, no, be in relationship with this. So as I was saying before about understanding the nature of God, so I picked out two verses. Both of them happen to be in first book of John, chapter 4. First one is verse 8. The normal Bible that I read is the King James Version, just because that's the Bible we grew up with. And, you know, it's not, somebody actually messaged me and said, what Bible would you recommend? I was like, well, the only one I really know is King James, because that was what we read. But, you know, there are other versions that don't quite use the antiquated language. And actually, the second one, I did write that in a newer version. But anyway, this one. So it's, he that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. So that verse tells us the nature of God. And it doesn't say God is loving, doesn't say God can be loving sometimes. It actually says God is love. So that, for me, the love experiment, a lot of the things that I do, the reason they are all so tied up together is because that's what the Bible tells me, that it doesn't say that God can be loving or God is like love. It says God is love. That is the very essence of who God is. And then the second verse is 1 John again, chapter 4, verse 16. And we have known and believed the love that God hath to us. God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. And this again is talking about this whole, how you to being in relationship with, being in constant communication with. Me and Russ at the moment, we're living in a static caravan, so there's not loads, and I mean, this is an amazing office that Russ built me on the side of the caravan, but you know, we don't have loads and loads of space. So if we're both sort of going around the caravan doing things, we have to be in constant communication. Otherwise, you know, even if it's not that spoken communication, there is a lot of communication between us. And to me, this verse, it's like, when we're talking about having an indwelling God, love within us, a conversation with this, it is very much, that's what we're being invited to do. Be in constant communication, know God. Know yourself and know God. And these two things, the more definitely, this is what I am supremely interested in. It's like, know who I am and know who God is and know who I am and whose I am. Because God, source energy, love is the creator of everything, the creator of all things. And the power, the love, the energy, the God that created us has so much knowledge about who we are. It's like we really, really miss a trick when we don't lean into that knowledge. And it is personal knowledge, having a having a relationship, a live of the moment relationship to God, to this fountain of knowledge and wisdom within us. One of the reasons that I am so interested in it is because when I came across the principles, I was done with trying to feel okay, trying to micromanage and control and be in control and have all my ducks in a row and all of this stuff. There was way too many plates to spin and balls to juggle and balls to spin and plates to juggle and all of it. You know, there was just way too much going on, and it's like, no, I can't do that on my own. And what was really helpful to me when I came across the principles was being pointed in the direction of mind, being pointed in the direction of this is how it works, which takes a whole lot off your plate. And to me, this is the same thing. It's like being in continuous communication with God, love, the power behind life. It takes a whole lot off my plate. It's like there's so much less I have to do, so much I don't have to control and panic and worry and get into a state about anything. It's like, no, I can lean into this knowing and trust. And one of the things that God says to me a lot, probably because I don't anywhere near enough, one of the things that God says to me a lot is, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Because often there is stuff going on in my life and it's like, I don't like that. I don't want that to be happening. I don't want it to be that way. I don't want it to be like that. I'm not interested in that. Okay, do you trust me? Do you trust me? And sometimes I get cross and say no. But the truth of the matter is, I can't say no for very long because the true answer is yes. I absolutely do. Does trusting God, wisdom, the energy behind life, does that mean everything always goes my way? Absolutely not. But one of the things that I've really noticed about life and how life works is how many people I have seen who appear to have a lot of things, certainly people who've gone after things, and we can want and want and want and want and want. And you see, I've listened to a couple of things that Jim Carrey has been putting out recently, and he talks a lot about how he went after every big dream he had and got all of those things, and it just left him empty. And what I know through being in relationship with God, what I know is that relationship really, really fulfills us. It really fulfills me. And what I am continually being pointed towards in that relationship is people, being in relationship with people, like being in a room with people, having conversations with people, being in service to people. Because the things that fulfill us the most in life, like when you look at the things in this world, they are short-lived, they come and they go. But the things, human beings, we are spiritual beings. Spiritual beings, human beings, we are forever. We're in human form for a short time, but the possibility of being here, being eternal, spiritual beings live in that possibility of being eternal. And so when God is obviously eternal, love is eternal. When we put our energy and our focus on things that are eternal, it is a whole different kind of fulfillment. It's a whole different ball game than when we put our attention and our focus on things that come and go. But what happens when we put our focus on truth, on love, on God, on those things that come and go, we end up having a different relationship to them too, a much more fulfilling relationship to those things. So it doesn't, like, having a relationship with God does not mean you can't have things, doesn't mean you can't, have stuff. It's absolutely not that at all. But it is just seeing stuff first and foremost is not where it's at. A relationship with God that then leads us to stuff is a much more fulfilling way around to live, to do this. So I'm going to say one more thing and then we're going to do some, I'm on it, Beck, it's okay. What tends to happen when and I know some of you have been in my community a while and have heard me talk in this way, but what tends to happen? Okay, so we are each and every one of us are born, we are an aspect of the divine. We are an aspect of God. And God puts something within each of us, and that's unique to us. We are like a gardener born into a garden with a garden within us. And the whole garden metaphor, I'm going to have to be quick, otherwise I'm going to run out of time. But the whole garden metaphor is much more, is pointed towards seeds, abundance, multiplication. So if we think, most of us are brought up to believe that we live in a bakery, and a bakery is like, here's a pie, cut it up, eat a piece of the pie and it's gone. So fight for your piece of the pie. We are not bakers in a bakery. We are gardeners in a garden with a garden within us. We have a seed within us. We have something, each one of us has what I'm going to call a God entity, something God put inside you that is yours to bring to the world. And one of the things that we do is we get confused about that. We see somebody else doing something and think, I want to be like them. It's like, no. You want to be like you. Dare to be you. You want to be you. Bring forth your seed. And the thing about gardens and gardeners and seeds, when you eat fruit, I mean, in the Bible, there's so much in Genesis, but in the Bible anyway, when it talks about creation, and one of the things that God says to man, human beings, is be fruitful. He talks about us as fruit. We are. So what is it about fruit? Completely different to a pie. When you eat a piece of fruit, the fruit has seeds within it. If we do something with those seeds, we get more. Like when we consume, if you consume a pie, it's gone. If you consume fruit, if you become fruitful, there's more and more and more and more. There's abundance there. So very, very often when we believe we're born into a bakery and things, limitation, fear, when I think about the love experiment, fear has us disconnected. It has us, disconnected from each other. It has us believing the lie of lack, and it has us believing lies about ourselves. Most of us create something, an identity around that. We create a lie identity. We lie to ourselves about who we are because we don't understand, we don't know, we don't realize what we have within us. And very often then the next thing we do when we begin to see through that, when we realize actually we are good enough, actually there is something about us, very often, and certainly if we are not in relationship with God, if we don't understand about source energy, if we don't look in this direction, if we don't do this, the next thing that we do, and certainly sometimes when we misunderstand some teachings, we next create something that I refer to as a my identity. It's like we decide, we think for ourselves, who do I think I am? What do I think's in me? Who do I think I am? And for me, what being in relationship to God, what that does for me is, before I was even born, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about God fashioning us when we are in our mother's womb. And it's like, yeah, before I was born, God decided. God knew who I was and decided who I was. God put seeds in me. That's not something I didn't do that. That God did that. And whether it's that I was a part of it and I forgot, I don't know, but God did that. God knows that, which is why having a relationship, it's like you've got a relationship with someone with the energy that who created you, that knows what was planted within you, that knows the path to take you on to nurture and bring what was planted in you to full fruition, to have it multiplying in ways that are beyond what you can imagine. So understanding your God entity is, knowing God, knowing God's nature, knowing your nature, and knowing your God entity. I would say that probably that has been the journey that I have been earnestly on for probably 2 or 3 years, looking in that direction, seriously looking in the direction of who am I? How does God see me? What would God call me? And as I said, like with any relationship, I mean, I talked about my lovely partner Russ, who we live in very close proximity. We know a lot about each other. We're talking all the time. We communicate a lot. When I first met Russ, I didn't really know much about him, and I didn't see him that often. He lived miles away. He lived 200 miles away from where I was when I first met him. Didn't realize that, but anyway, that's another story. But he lived a long way away, and I would speak to him some on the phone and things like that, but I didn't know him that well. Over time, I have nurtured that relationship, and as I said, now we can practically finish each other's sentences. We know each other quite well now. And to me, what I see is when we first start speaking to God, this is one of those things, when I first started speaking to Russ, I maybe didn't quite, he would say things and maybe I didn't know much about football at all, really, before. To be fair, I don't know much about football now. But, Russ plays football, he plays golf, well, not plays, watches football, plays golf and does things. And these were things that I had no idea about. And he's a builder and he does, there were plenty of things that I could not have spoken about that since I have been in a relationship with him and got to know, I know about these things a little bit now. And it's a similar thing to this. It's like when we are first speaking to God, how God is going to speak to us, how we are going to, how do we discern between my wisdom, intuition, God? How do I discern between that and me? You practice and you learn about God's nature. You learn about your own nature and you learn about God's nature and you practice. And as you do that, it becomes more and more and more clear and obvious to you when you hear God, when it's God's voice. It's just like, that's so clear. So one of the things that I really wanted to do when on this webinar this evening So initially, when I thought of this idea, so to me, the love experiment, which we're going to, there's another webinar next week where we're going to talk more specifically about the love experiment. But for me, the love experiment really ramped up me talking to God. And I'm going to completely and utterly hold my hands up here now and just say, those of you who've been on the last few courses that I've done, probably in the 6 to 8 months, have seen I was really, really nervous about sharing that I spoke to God. I was really, really nervous about saying that out loud. And it felt to me, I think I was probably saying it out loud more than I realized. You know, to me, it was like a bit of a secret. And then I'd kind of say, oh, God. On some calls, you know, people come on calls and I go, yeah, let's talk to God. All right, let's talk to God. B, what I know is that this is my God entity. This is what I am called to do. And so what I would really love for us to do, as I said, when this idea for this webinar first came, I thought, right, I'm just going to do this for people who are part of the love experiment, because for me, it's a huge part of the love experiment, having a relationship with God. And then I thought, right, okay, let's just open this up to as a public thing. Let's just invite everyone and let's play with talking to God. Let's do that whilst we're here on the call. Let's give that a go. So we're going to do that in a second. And I'm going to invite you to just have an open mind, to not be too tied into hearing complete, clear sentences about something, you know, whatever. But what I find fascinating very often, and I'm sure I know there are people on this call that have been with me when we've spoken to God, and very often, you know, maybe afterwards I'll say, has anyone got anything to share? And they say, well, no, I didn't really hear much. I just heard magnificent, you know, something or other. And it's like, oh yeah, nothing then, nothing from God, obviously. And it's like, we are so used to not taking any notice, not listening to what's being said. So we're gonna play with speaking to God now, and I'm going to invite you, if you hear anything, if you have got a pen and paper or your phone or something close to you, if anything, do write it down if it makes sense to you. To, you know, any words. You might think, well, I don't really know why I heard that, but very, very often I will hear things. So this evening I was messing around, I was getting tea or anything like this, and I just heard, look at the clock, look at the clock. And where I was stood, I could see the bedroom door was open and I could see Russ's clock on the side of the hip. I heard as clear as day, look at the clock. So I looked over at Russ's clock and it was 5:55. So what was on the clock was 5:55. And then I just heard the Bible meaning of 5. So I just Googled, what does 5 mean in the Bible? And what came from there was the number 5 in the Bible represents God's grace, goodness, and favor. And it's like a massive thumbs up for tonight. That was clear to me. It was like, yes, God's favor, God's grace. Go for it, do it. And so very often that's the kind of thing that can happen. And often, very, very often when I'm like this and talking like this, God will be really going for it in my head, sharing things and saying. So right now he's going, shut up and get on with it. Let's talk. Let's talk. So I'm going to invite you to just get comfortable, to just make yourself comfortable. If it's comfortable, close your eyes, do. If it's not, don't worry about it at all. There is no right and wrong here. There is no must-dos or whatever. Like any relationship, if you were going to tell me about your relationship with someone who is near and dear to you, how you conduct that relationship could be quite different to how I conduct relationships. And you know, I have different relationships with different people. So your relationship with God is yours. It is personal to you. And what you will get, what you will hear is personal to you. So this is personal. Hello, God. Thank you for being with us on this call. I would really, really, really love to invite you to share with these lovely people who have put the time aside to do this how you see these people. What name would you call them? What identity, what God entity would you give them? How do you see the people here? How do you see them? It would be really, really wonderful to give them a word or a sentence, or for them to see something, for them to have a feeling about something, to know something, to feel your presence. Who do you see these people as? What is their God entity? There is no rush, but I'm going to invite you back into the room when you're ready. Has anyone got anything that they would like to share about what happened when we open that up to speak to God? Kathy, hi.
No. So I got three words, and the first one was helper. The second one was strength, and then out of the blue came cherub.
Do those words mean something to you?
Helper. Helper, yes. Cherub, I love angels. Anyway, I've always been a big angel fan. Strength. Maybe because I'm in need of more of it, or I feel I need more of it or something, or maybe it's there already and I haven't tapped into it as much as I need to. Don't know, but those words just came.
Interestingly, what came to me as soon as you shared those 3 words was angels are watching you to give you strength. Just literally came in my head.
Thank you.
You said that. No. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Laura.
Hi.
Hi.
Wow. I kind of doubted. I sort of questioned in my head and I was like, I feel very peaceful, but I don't hear anything. I'm not sure. It was almost like maybe my mind wasn't receiving, but something was going on, up there or spiritually or something. But I'm so glad you said that and I'm happy I'm appreciative of the first girl who talked because I didn't really believe this. It was Angel. And I thought, no, I'm not an angel. So I was doubting myself. Um, and then the other word was brave. Um, and I'm glad that you said whatever you just said, the angels giving me strength, because like I'm going through something where it's like a physical thing, it's a thyroid, it's just some different health things. And sometimes it makes me like off or anxious, which, it's not just thought. um so I love that because sometimes like if I like have like an episode or whatever it is, like I'll see hearts and then like that day it's not a good day or whatever. um so yeah, I really appreciate the angel, your explanation, whatever it is you just said, because I'm going to take it for me as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Just a side note too, and I talk to God all day long too. And I do hear a lot. And there's so much, and I don't want to take up a lot of time if other people want to talk, but so much like things in the world or whatever, you know, um, I don't know if this is the right way to say it. Like love is subjective, if that's the right word. It's not being a doormat. I mean, I do understand, love versus fear, coming from a loving place, that you care or whatever. So I get that, the general idea of love. But I know it's a quick subject of talking about love, but you know what I mean? It could mean caring, it could mean a small thing, just being kind, opening the door, all that is love, to remember
Yeah.
those small things as well. But do you have like your definition of love or?
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for what you shared and your sharing. And absolutely if something means something to you, take it. Absolutely. For me, and certainly when I think of God as love, and God being the nature of love, and much more. I mean, I think it is, like you said, I think love to me encompasses it all the aspects of what love can be, a relationship, love, or whatever. But love is also something much, much deeper. And and I guess one of the things that really helps me to lean into for myself what is love, what am I pointing to, what am I mean by that, is having it as living from love as opposed to fear. because it feels to me, if I think of it in that way, I am either rooted in, coming from, being whatever, love, or I am rooted in, coming from, being fearful, fear. And for me, the commitment part of the love experiment is making a commitment to live from love, not fear. And it is not, you know, I don't, a huge part of living from love. So love doesn't mind if you make mistakes. So the first thing when I commit, it is a serious commitment to living from love, but it is not a beat yourself up, be mean, be nasty, force yourself. This has got to be, it's like, love accepts mistakes. And so for me, it's just learning and the discernment. I think it is, we know, because to me, one of the reasons that I trust and know God is because I have an inner moral compass. Because if God didn't exist, a moral, like the standard to which we adhere, the standard of love, what does constitute love as opposed to fear, could be up for grabs. You know, you could think of it differently to me, but it's like, absolutely not. We have something, there is something as human beings that we know. And when we ask that question, when we make a commitment and ask, if we begin to, it's a discernment within ourselves, because it is something that is within us, because God is within us. Like, we can know, am I rooted in love or fear here? And, you know, fear can be, if you think that there are only two headings, if you like, we are either rooted in love or we are rooted in fear. The commitment to it, one of the things that God reveals to me again and again and again is, yeah, that's not loving. And it's not, you can't put it down to, you know, when you think of parenting or when you think of a relationship, you can't have a if this, then that, because it simply doesn't work like that. You know, I've got 3 grown-up children and I parented them all very different because they were different. I couldn't have said the same thing to them because they were different. They needed different things, and they needed different things in different times. And so to me, that is the discernment. It's, where is it rooted? Because I can say something to somebody, I can say something that on the surface looks incredibly kind, but it can be rooted in fear in me. So it's that knowing, where is this coming from? What's going on here? And what we do outwardly could be the same, but what happens, what is put out into the world, what the energy that goes out, there's a knowing in that. And the more that we lean into that, the more we see that. Hopefully that sort of answered your question. Great question, thank you. Has anyone else got anything that they want to share from what they heard when we spoke to God? Or has anyone got any questions or comments about anything that has come up so far? Lovely, Joe.
I think what I heard, you've just kind of really summarized it actually in the love and fear thing, because what I heard was, you are already carrying the truth. Don't be afraid to share it. And I think that, so the truth is obviously love, and then don't be afraid is the fear aspect of it. So that really makes a lot of sense.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. I think exactly like when Kathy originally shared and then Laura said, I think it is a huge part of this is having the sharing, being open, being generous enough to share, because I think all of this is good for all of us. And I know sometimes, a little bit like me, you know, I have been really, really fearful to share in this way in the past. And it's like, no, that's rooted in fear. I've been really fearful to share in this way. It's like, no, it's rooted in fear. Trust. Do you trust? Yes. So thank you, Joe, and thank you for sharing. Kathy.
Only a quick one, Deb. Please, could I ask, what was the second verse that you gave from chapter 4, verses 16? The first one was John. Which one was the second one,
They were
please?
both John. They were both the first one, John 4, and the first one was verse 8, and the second one was verse 16.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Deborah. Hey. Oh. You're muted still. No, can't hear you. You're muted. It says you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yay, I'm online. Wow. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I only get into contact with God when you speak, as you know. So I love it. I take every opportunity where I can just have you say, now, God, speak to these people. And it's immediate for me. It's immediate tears. It's immediate, such a deep connection. It is incredible. I can't do it on my own. I just find so funny, but and what I got was loving, but like deeply, deeply loving, like so deep and so big, and mother. Like, so you'd think, oh, a loving mother, right? That is what I am, but it was kind of different. I don't know. I don't know. It just felt very big, felt very vast. And then I got like, open your heart, just open your heart, like which I do hold back. There's something about sort of being scared to love in a way, or like shutting down. Definitely, I've been shut down, like, or like the fear of like shut down or something. When it was so relevant. It was so relevant. Just open your heart and just like, don't be afraid to like love that vastness of love. So it was just amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for sharing. And I can really, really, really concur with you. There is something, we know each other reasonably well. You know, we've been working together for a while, and I can, God's going crazy in my head. There is such a depth and a vastness, and you run away. You'll never, you won't be still and connect and be in it. And so absolutely it is. Yeah. Being in this.
It's because it feels too intense.
Yes.
I think it's so big that I'm just like, I can't just, this is too much, shut down.
It's okay. You can trust.
Yeah.
You can trust. One step at a time, gently. It's not too big, because God's got it.
Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Has anyone else got anything that they would like to share? Richie, come on, share some love, Richie. I know what God thinks of you.
Well, thanks, Debs. I mean, I got gorgeous feelings all the way through, and I'm feeling emotional already. So when you gave that space, I just got nothingness. And then I think my intellect came in, or something came in, and said, "You know the answer." And of course, is love. That's that is it. I get all shivery. And I understand what Deborah says. Because it is. It's really strong. I'm actually having trouble talking because it's so. And I know Sid got upset sometimes, didn't he, when he was talking about this, because it's it's very powerful but very beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, I think a connection to God can be the incredible power of it. Is, but it is, lean into it, lean into that love. It's the same like with Deborah. It's okay. It's a very, very safe and nurturing and beautiful connection to live within. So I'm aware of the time, and I wanted to invite everybody and anyone who's listening to the replay of this. We have another webinar next Monday, the 2nd of March, my first daughter's birthday, the day that I became a mum, 2nd of March, way back when. But yeah, so lovely Lizzie, give us a wave, Lizzie, who is here on the call tonight. We are going to be talking a bit more about the love experiment on that call. And we have a little invitation for you on that call for something that Lizzie and I are going to be up to around the love experiment. So you may well be signed up for that, but if you are in any doubt at all, you know, drop us an email or whatever. Make sure if you want to come on that webinar, and even if you can't make it live, you'll get the replay if you register for that. And then the other thing, there is something that I am going to start to do. I can't remember the date now. Beck, you tell them about that.
You tell them about it. I'll say the date.
Okay. So as I've been sharing here, one of the things that I have just become really, really interested in is the Bible. It is an incredible book. It blows my mind. The connections, the things that are hidden in the Bible, the connections between the Old Testament and the New Testament. I mean, don't get me started or you'll be here till 2 o'clock in the morning. It is unbelievable, the things that are woven into that book. It is an incredible book. And so Beck and I often do things together, and Beck and I talked about doing a Bible study. We thought it would be so much fun to do a Bible study, and then we thought, okay, well, let's open it up then. So if anyone is interested, so one of the things, my God entity, there are 2 things that God says very, very clearly to me about my God entity, and one of them is a breaker of cycles and the other is an interpreter. And as I read the Bible very often, you know, things, I hear things in different places, all over the place, all sorts of things. And I love talking about what I am seeing that I just never saw before. When I was reading the Bible, I just never saw it there. And now it's literally like someone's, you know, highlighting different words and saying things. So I'm going to be starting to do a Bible study. If anyone is interested in joining me, look at Beck's face.
Yeah, with that. I'm so excited. That will be live on YouTube from Tuesday the 10th of March. It will be weekly at 4 o'clock live on YouTube. All of this I will also put in the email tomorrow with the replay, so you don't have to remember it. It will be in there. And I've also just dropped the link if you did want to find out more about the Love Experiment program that we've been talking about. But yeah, all of that information will be with the replay email tomorrow as well, of course. And you can always email and ask us. We like getting emails, don't we, Deb?
We do. Right. So thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, thank you for those of you that shared. It's so beautiful when we share these things. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for being a part of this journey that just keeps unfolding and getting better and better and better. So hopefully we will see you all next week. And oh my gosh, hopefully we will see some of you live in person at the conference. There still is time to get your tickets if you haven't got them. Do come and join us. Honestly, that is the most. If you want to just spend 3 amazing days just being completely immersed in love and this, come and join us at the conference. It will be amazing. You know, and if not online, I mean, you know,
almost as good.
It's better than not at all, but the chance to be in person in the room is something incredible. So if you are interested in joining us, please, you know, if you've got any questions, that will just be incredible. So thank you so much, guys. It's been amazing. Thank you for participating. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being in our community. We love you. Take care, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.